So hi everybody at home, thanks for tuning in. Today we are going to be going over a few different things, so welcome to class. I just had the students turn in their pink sheets, how to be an anti-racist. This was due and it's due for you guys tomorrow. So this seems to be going kind of haywire. It's like freaking out on me here. Accordingly. You guys, your test is Monday, so this is going to be your last day in class. For those of you at home, your test is Friday. Homework tonight is 548 to 559, but if you guys are behind on your reading at all, you know that because I won't see you now till Monday, you have a few days to get caught up on your reading a little bit. With that being said, any just quick thoughts about what you read? Have you ever heard of this author before? No. Okay. Be a human being, have a thought.
I didn't really like it that much.
Didn't like it. What didn't you like about it?
I thought it was
Thank
kind
you.
of just like being like,
Thanks.
oh, you're being bad, you're like bad at tests, tests is racist towards you.
That what?
Like it just kind of, you know, like blaming the test for being racist.
Oh, blaming Tess for being racist.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Maybe that's because you only read 3 pages of the entire book. And so maybe it was taken out of context. That's good for me to know. Yeah?
I felt like it was kind of repetitive.
Yeah,
Like I didn't mind reading it, but I felt like a lot of it.
He kept going over the same type of things. Okay. Good to know. That's good to know as well. Go ahead.
Points, but at times things just seem tone seemed kind of off, and yeah.
The tone seemed off?
Yeah.
Well, the title of the book is How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's not how to feel better about being a white man. So I chose to read the book because I want to make myself feel uncomfortable, not because I had anything to do with school. My goal this year is to challenge my white privilege. And I can't do that if I don't read about other authors with a different point of view. So I picked up that book personally, just for myself, and I got to the point about testing, and I was like, he's explaining stereotype threat, he's explaining test biasing, which if you read your textbook, they have a pretty strong portion of that in there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys have to say. I look forward to reading your input. That is pretty much what you just did, and that reading is discuss whether intelligence tests are culturally biased. One of the things that majority of you are sitting in here is over 80% of you are white, whether a male or a female. You're innately going to say no, they're not, because it's to our advantage. And so that's where we have to step back and say, how could they be culturally biased, and in what way could they be actually giving advantageous to a particular group of people? So anyway, that reading was just supposed to accentuate that particular learning target for you guys. This is Elena's, if you guys want to pass that over to her. Thank you, I appreciate it. What I would like us to do today is to kick off this particular learning target, which I went over in your the video yesterday, because it is that important. Learning target C, which if you look up there, infer the meanings regarding test construction, reliability, and validity. So this is stuff I went over yesterday. So how do we construct an intelligence test? 1, standardization, 2, reliable, and 3, validity. I'm going to quickly go over this again because on your test, which is 50 questions on Monday, 11 of those test questions are just about these 3. So you need to know the definitions and how to apply them. You know, you need to be able to give me examples. What's an example of standardized test? What's an example of reliable test? What's an example of a valid test? And so what you notice here when I wrote, we want that beautiful bell-shaped curve. And in your handout under the green sheet that I told you to open up to, is Brian has it right there. You see that beautiful bell-shaped curve has come back. We learned about that bell-shaped curve. If you had stats, you've learned about it in other classes, but you also learned about it in our history and methods unit. This bell-shaped curve is not going away ever in this class. You need to memorize it. College Board is going to test you on this. Okay, so this is a good opportunity for us to review what that bell-shaped curve is all about. You've got a perfectly symmetrical bell-shaped curve on paper, not as beautifully symmetrical on my writing, I apologize. But just to remind you guys, if we're talking about a regular standardized test here, the purple is the scores of the intelligence test. The standard deviation is 15, so you're going to go up by sets of 15 and you're going to go down by sets of 15. That should be a review from chapter 1 of this class. Any questions? All right, so then we go up by 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, 3 standard deviations, and this tells us, here's the numbers you must memorize, 68% of the population falls between 1 and 1, and if you want to move, Brian, feel free to grab another desk and whip it around, that's totally fine. 68% of the population falls between 1 and 1, 95% of the population falls between 2 and 2, and 99.7% of the population falls amongst the rest. So what I wanted to do was maybe apply it a little bit to our life in AP Psychology, a little bit more than just being kind of obscure about standardized test. So the standardized test obviously needs to ensure that it's developed so that we have this. When we talk about ACT, SAT, we're talking about that. When we talk about our College Board exam for AP Psych, we're talking about they want that beautiful bell-shaped curve. They don't want more people in the nation scoring too high or too low. They want it just to be that beautiful shape. And get that is they actually send out a pretest. And I mentioned this on the video. One year I was selected to do the pretest. It was about 40 questions. My students took the test. I had to seal it back in like the presidential seal, just kidding, but I had to seal it back. I had to promise I would never give them any advice or help them at all on the test. And then what they did is they take those test questions and they see, do we have with the sample population that took this test, do we this beautiful bell-shaped curve? Then from those test questions, they develop either they use the same test questions or they develop something similar and they then give you a similar test. So I actually will give you that test toward the end just so you guys can practice it because I'm having a feeling like one of these years you're probably going to get hit with some of these test questions, and what better way of content validity, right? So here's what the College Board does. If you look at the scores in the nation, nationally, 68% of the population in the United States will score a 3 on the AP exam on mine. I don't know what everybody else's is like. 13.5% will get a 4 and 2% get a 5. All right, so it's not that many. Why? If you look at that and you're saying, wow, only 2% of the nation is going to get a 5. Why is that? One big factor is a wonderful state, the sunny state called Florida. I'm not sure if you realize it or not, but every high school kid that graduates from a Florida high school must take an AP class in order to earn their graduation degree. Every kid. Every kid. You guys, that's a lot. And that's a lot of variation of ability levels. So what do most of them take if they're going to take an AP class? This one. Right? If they've never taken one before, we get a lot of that too. But kids that are scared or worried about it, they take AP Psych. They don't generally take AP Calc for the first time and say, I've never been in an honors math class, right? So it all falls under AP Psych. So they get this beautiful bell-shaped curve. How do we fall? I thought you might be curious. In this particular class, here's our data. This is not last year's data. If you're wondering why I did not use last year's data, it is because last year's data I feel was a bit skewed because it was only from the essay. So last year's AP test, if you took them, you realize that you only wrote essays. So I took this from the previous year. How you read this is, think about what you got in my class last semester. This just this past semester, what score you earned. This is at the end of the year. Kids that got A's, 32 of them got a 5. 8 of them got a 4, and 2 of them got a 3. Now I'm going to ask you what data stands out to you here in just a second, okay? My students that got B's, 8 of them got a 5, 11 of them got a 4, 7 of them got a 3, and 4 of them got a 2. My C students, 3 got a 4, 5 got 3s, 2 got 2s, and 1 got a 1. My D students, 2 got a 4, 1 got a 3, and 2 got a 2. Here's my percentages. 45% of my students that year got a 5. Quite a big difference. That should be refreshing to you. That should be like, holy crap, Miss Horner, that feels pretty good. My chances are much higher than the nation, right? 27% got a B in this class, 13%, 9% 2s. This one I was not happy with for myself, and then 1% got a 1. What number, what data stands out to you? What's your wows? What's your I wonders? What's the
Obviously, 45% getting 5,
Yeah.
as well as the encore, just the oddity between B and C and how similar they are. The fact that D technically did slightly better than C.
Anything particularly about the C that stands out to you?
Mass correlation rate.
Yeah, the 3s. Generally, if you're getting a C in this class, you're probably going to get a 3 or better, because the 8 people did. Any other numbers stand out to anybody else?
The D's got 4, like 2 of the D's got 4s.
Exactly. As the teacher getting this data back, I went, my D's, 2 of them earned a D in this class, but they got a 4 on the AP exam. Let's do some inferences. Why do you think that may have happened? We don't know the correct answer, so let's just throw that out there.
They're really good at gambling.
But then why weren't they good at tests in class? Can you get a D
Some
in,
you lose some.
Application.
can you get a D in this class if you score high on your test? No. And vice versa. You cannot get a A or a B in this class if you do not score high on your test. Because I don't score much homework, and you don't have any quiz scores and projects we didn't even do. So really your only tests, your tests are the majority of your scores. I would say like the D kids, maybe that got the 4, were really lazy in class. They just like, I mean, I get that a lot, you know, where kids are like, I'm not gonna, whatever. Oh, you know how many times kids come in and say, we have a test today? Like, you don't even have a clue that as they're walking in, they're like, crap, okay, give it to me. You know, not prepared, but then maybe they prepare. That's one assumption I'm potentially making. This is one that stands out to me. Getting a B in this class, but yet 4 of them didn't pass. What assumptions do you want to make on that one?
Nervous.
Nerves? You're being nice. Yes, they were nervous. And maybe that is true, because in class I really try to create that environment where you feel comfortable and relaxed and you can ask me questions, and you couldn't do that down at NICC. Any others? What were you going to say, Bethany?
That I don't like some people for like individual tests. They remember, like they study like the next
Oh.
day, and they remember for that day, but then when it comes to overall, they just
Yeah.
forget everything.
Yeah, like they couldn't cram for just that one unit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too much information.
I also thought maybe they cheated. I don't know the answer. All of you guys could be right, but you know, like, oh, they're cheating their way through my test somehow. They're getting the answers and then boom. I don't know. But I guess the best thing I'd like you guys to take away is the standardized scores for the nation for AP Psychology creates that beautiful bell-shaped curve, but we don't in this class. Would this be considered a skewed distribution? Review. Yep, you bet. It would definitely be skewed. And it would be skewed in a very good way to us. So remember, standardization. The word is at the top of the green sheet. Circle or highlight it. You guys need to know what standardization is and how they do it. It's very lengthily worded there, but in the board I just put similar populations. We want to create that bell-shaped curve. The next word, if you flip the page, yep, on the bottom where it says reliability number 4 and validity number 5. Those are two really, really important test questions. My goal for you guys when you leave here today is that you know the difference between reliability and validity, and we can identify those two differences. I summed those two up in just 2 simple words. So again, lengthier definitions on your green sheet. If you're looking for just a short one, reliability means consistency, validity means accuracy. How accurate is the test and how consistent is the test? Is it important if you are developing a test that you have all 3 of these things? Yes is your answer. Can you have reliability and it not be valid? You can, but it's not good. You don't want it. Here's the example. It's a modern day example. If your boyfriend picks you up at 8 o'clock every single Friday, does that mean he's reliable? Yeah, it does. It means he's reliable to pick you up. You know you can count on him. He's very consistent. Does that make him a good boyfriend? Probably not just that characteristic alone. You would say, well, that's all my boyfriend needs to do, and then he's a great boyfriend. You probably have more things you want your boyfriend to do, and he may or may not do those. So therefore, you could have a reliable boyfriend that's not a valid boyfriend. He picks you up at 8 o'clock every Friday, but yet he cheats on you every Friday night. Not a good boyfriend, right? He's reliable that he cheats on you, you're right. But what I'm trying to say, you guys, is a test needs to be both of these. So if you didn't finish your checking for understanding, fill these in now as we go. We'll start with you, Mr. Adam, with the very first one, with reliability. Validity. And there are 2 types of validity, content and predictive. Professor Lazarus is known for giving fair exams in his algebra course that includes only test items for which students should have been prepared through both reading and attending lectures. His exams include questions that relate to the learning targets given to the students. These exams can be said to have what? High content validity. Now, don't mention any names, but do any of you ever know of anyone that, or have you ever been in a situation where the teacher, you're taking the test and you're like, we did not learn about this. We did not read about this. Where the heck are they getting these test questions from? Has this ever happened to any of you? How frustrating is it to walk out of those tests? For me, high school wasn't bad. It was college where I really started recognizing this. I could not believe the amount of college professors that I would have, especially, and I'm so sorry to stereotype, but it was older professors who just wanted to talk to you about their knowledge of the content, but totally forgot to teach about the test. And then you would get to it and you're like, what the heck? You know, what is this about? And it was super frustrating then because, you know, more, I thought, than in high school because I was paying for it. And it just really irked me when that happened. All right, we'll just go right around. Elena, what do you think? For 2, if one wanted to assess their future success as an aeronautical engineer, they could take an exam to compare their scores to those who are already in their field. This type of assessment would be measuring. Predictive is the correct answer. 3, Miss Bethany. Rima is at the DMV taking her driving exam. She studied hard for the exam as she wants to be a registered driver. She takes the exam. She realizes she knows most of the answers because it has the same type of questions she saw in the practice exam provided to her in advance to study from. Also, the exam questions all relate to the daily issues one might face driving in the streets. Because the question covers all the material it was designed to cover, this driver's ed exam could be said to have content is the correct answer. I believe I wanted to show this to you in relation to that prompt. And I couldn't believe, I said, well, I'm not going to say anything yet. So you all check this out the very first day, okay? Some of you have never looked at it yet. Some of you have, maybe. But one thing I would like to say is at the end of each little chapter, there is like a 15-question little test. And it gives you the answers. We're talking about this. And it gives you the answers. Some of my students who actually do this to prepare for the test, they say, Ms. Horner, some of those test questions were in the review book. And I say, yes, they were. Good for you for preparing. So if you are sitting here saying, I've never looked at this yet, it has high content validity. I've taken some of these test questions, not all of them, but I reused them again. So it might help you study. And then the last one, Miss Ann. Emily took the ACT. Her score was high, indicating she was very likely to succeed in college. She was accepted to a good college, but flunked out. What type of was faulty on her ACT? Predictive. It's predictive. So let me ask you guys this. Let's say I'm a psychologist and I have a self survey, basically, where you like fill out your own questionnaire. And I'm trying to see as a psychologist if a child or an adult is suicidal or not. So now the seriousness, right, just turned to a different level. What happens if I get the similar scores from a suicidal adult and a non-suicidal adult? What should that tell me? It does not have high predictive validity. That's right. Understand why it's important, not just on like major, like an ACT or an SAT. We're talking, this stuff can tell us a lot about different things, depending upon the field that you guys get into, especially. Anybody interested in being a test maker or developer? Nobody grows up saying, I want to be develop test. Isn't it funny? You know how much money you can make for developing test? Quite a bit. Huh? They do make good money. Maybe people like it. Maybe somebody thrives on this, Seth. You are not. You are not. You know, one time I got this call from this publisher about 2 years ago, and they wanted me to help develop a psych test. And I said, well, that's what I said, Seth. I go, all my test questions come from somebody else. I don't write them myself. I said, I would literally just be taking somebody else's test questions and putting them on your book. And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's unethical to me. Anyway, it's easy money. Listen to you. Knall, are we on you? All right, he's doodling over here. I've lost him. Pooja has just taken the AP Psych exam. 2 psych instructors grade her exam, which gives her the same grade for the free response portion. This is an example of inter-rater reliability. Does our school have high inter-rater reliability?
No.
NO. So what that means is you take an algebra class or a geometry class. This teacher is teaching that class. This teacher is teaching that class. If we had high inter-rater reliability, both teachers would grade those problems the same. It doesn't mean the problem question is the same. Most of your math teachers have the same problems, but it means they score them differently. I did not learn this in college. I did not learn the importance of this in any of my teaching training at all. None of it. I learned it, as I mentioned in the video yesterday, when I went away and I became an AP reader. The very first day of our training, 8 hours. I'm not lying, 8 hours almost, where I read sample essays. I give them to my table person. He reads them. I give them to the next table person. He reads them. And all of our scores need to match. Then day 2, we start reading you. So I guess that's very comforting to know that your essays are graded by more than one eyes. Okay, that is helpful. Number 2, Cole. Lucky took a test to become a police officer in DC. The test assessed the skills necessary to be a competent police officer in a city with very high crime rate. When he was shown the results, he knows that he did well in the second half, but it's poor in the first. This test might lack what? Split half. And then Nick, Joe took a test to become an aerobics instructor at a local gym. He did poorly on the exam, was not accepted as an instructor. 6 months later, he took the same test again. This time he did well, became a successful aerobics instructor. Assuming he did not practice or train for the second test, you might question the
Test, retest.
Thank you. Test, retest. In math at Hempstead High School, can you retest? You can, I believe. Maybe even some other classes. Any other classes allow you to retest? Okay. Okay. So a test retest. If you don't study for it and you don't get retaught, that's what we're talking about. I don't want to know your score on your ACT, but did any of you take it more than once?
Technically,
What? How do you technically?
it's not a very valid example since I took the first one in 8th grade.
Oh. Well, did any of the rest of you take it more than once? No. Is it due to the fact that COVID hit and you got some things canceled? Yeah. I've just had a couple kids today that have said, yeah, it worked for them.
I was supposed to take my ACT last June. I took it last December.
Okay, so that tells you a little bit about COVID. So what I was trying to tell you, and if you watch that video, I talked about how if you retake your ACT, you may increase or decrease by a few measuring points, but to go up by like 10 or down by 10, it just is so rare. It doesn't happen. And that's because it has a high test retest reliability. Leaving here today understanding the difference between the two. Moving on then. I want to talk about what's behind Brian, and this is not in your binder, and you need to know this. So if you have on a separate sheet of paper, you have a title, Extremes of Intelligence. This was part of your reading. This is Learning Target D. Describe the two extremes in intelligence. Brian, I am going to, I'm so sorry, have you just scoot on over here. And sorry about that loud noise, everybody. Okay, so how I wrote this, you guys, extremes in intelligence, is let's start with the black. You're going to have plenty of time to copy it all down. I am apologizing ahead of time. This is super tiny. I ran out of board space, but I'll read it off to you guys so that you can copy it down too. They talk about a lot of this in your book. So what I did was I literally just took your intelligence scores and I brought them down here. But because these are extremes, we have more scores than we do on the previous one up here. So from 85 to 115, 85 to 115, this is your average. This is where the majority of human beings will fall between those scores. So we don't need to discuss average. We need to go to the other extreme. Let's talk first, like I said, with the black side. From 115, and if you need to move, get yourself where you can see, please do. 115 to 130 is considered mildly gifted. How many of you were told at a very young age that, well, I'm not even going to ask that out loud. Some of you probably were told at a younger age that you are smart and we need to put you in honors classes. And maybe some of you know friends that were placed in honors classes if you yourself were not at a younger age. When you are told over and over and over again that you are smart, what happens? Anne?
You just end up thinking that you're smart.
Yep. Yep. And this was the answer to number 1 on your reading that you guys read. What is that term called when you start to believe it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. You start acting it out. And you were told, oh, you're so smart, Johnny. You're so smart. You're so smart. Johnny starts to believe it. And it works on the other extreme too. Johnny, you're not smart. You're not smart. You're not smart. He starts to believe that as well. And you start to live out the beliefs that other people have in you. So advantages to being labeled, because that's what it is, a labeling when you are younger. There can be definite advantages and definite disadvantages. We move up to 130 to 145. Some of you probably are even in that category where you're more of the highly gifted, that if you took an IQ test, you would be up into this range. And then we have the exceptionally gifted. So this is much more rare. And that goes up to about 180-ish. I want to point out another test question that I brought up yesterday on the video that you also had in your reading. Tierman. Tierman studied kids from the ages of like 8 to 11-ish that were 150 or better. Okay, so make sure you know this. As I talked to you guys yesterday, I said there were 1,500 kids he studied. And what he studied was he wanted to see what happened when they got to be adults. Like, what is the stereotype if you are super smart? If you have a high IQ of 150 or better, what's our stereotype even today in this world? What's going to happen to you as an adult? You're going to be uberly successful. You're so smart you can do anything, right? And what he noticed is 100 of these 1,500 were exceptional. They were like inventors. They were creating a lot of wonderful things in the world. They were very successful. 100, not so successful. 100 of the 1,500 dropped. Not, I mean dead, but like hit rock bottom. Like they divorced, alcoholism, socially they were not successful, and then as well as professionally they were not were not successful either. That leaves a lot of people, guys. 1,300 people with an IQ of 150 or more. What's going to happen to them? If you're not here and you're not here, where are you? You are right in the middle. Good news for most of us, I hope, that you have the ability to actually do good things, because what he did not study is this. And I can summarize it in one word: grit. Grit, your determination, your perseverance, your motivation, your work ethic. Yes, you might score really high on an IQ test, but does that measure that, baby? And that's where we see people rising above. Make sense? Let's go to the blue. I've got much more on this one to say. All right, 50 to 85, and you do on your test, it will give you a number. It will say you're intellectually disabled, you have a person that's intellectually disabled, and they have a score of maybe 45. Okay, so be able to place them. From 50 to 85 is considered mild intellectual disability, is what ID stands for. I ran out of room, you should write it out. Okay, mild intellectual disability. At least one time write it out. So you have some disabilities intellectually in some way. This is moderate intellectual disability, and then this is severe intellectual disability. So if you'd like to shorthand those, that's fine too. From 50 to 85, generally speaking, people with mild intellectual disabilities, you can look at me just like you're looking at me right now with no mask on, and you would not be able to physically tell that I have an intellectual disability. I look pretty darn like anybody else, okay? Make sense? Okay, that's an important thing to note, unless in purple, and put that up to the side because you're gonna get tested on Down syndrome. They bring that up in your book too. Down syndrome, what is it? You have an extra what?
21st.
Yep, you got an extra 21st chromosome. I have just a quick 3-minute clip I'd like to share with you guys before I go on to the rest about people with Downs. And I love it because it does defy some of those stereotypes that we have of people with intellectual disabilities. So you talk about self-fulfilling prophecy, you talk about labeling people and how detrimental it can be and how harmful it can be if you start believing that that is your only worth. Look at how different the people in these videos. This is a trailer. So it's an actual documentary called Born This Way, but this is the trailer of it. So you get introduced to all the people that are in the documentary.
A woman who just got a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome could watch this and see, oh my gosh, there's people that date. My son can get married. My child one day will have a job, will have meaningful relationships, and will have an amazing life.
I'm Rachel. I'm 32.
What do you want people to know about you?
I have an extra chromosome in me. I have a photo.
Our dream for them is that they could live as independent as they can.
And a paycheck. Greatest go today. Being independent is working on our own.
Hey, Kevin.
You can make your life anything you want.
Drinking beer?
Yeah, cheers. My name is Steven. I'm 24 years old. I was born with mosaic Down syndrome. Online dating is the worst. She is this crazy little lunatic.
My name's Salah. I'm 21 years old.
Are you currently working?
No, not yet, but I'm looking for good jobs.
We feel customer service is the key to our success. Do you feel good about that?
I can do it.
Is she sexy?
Yes, he is here.
You're beautiful.
My name is Christina. I'm transgender So I like to hang out with my friends, my family, my boyfriend. Love you to hang out with you.
What did you get her?
A ring? You got her a ring?
It's really big step to get married.
If we want to have an independent life, we gotta make sure that they have an
No,
independent
the
life.
problem is I'm not ready.
Can you believe that we're talking about our girl with Down syndrome? That she's going to be the first one out of the house?
My name is Elena, and I have dreams of my own. Back to one and action.
Eleanor is the outgoing personality. She loves to sing, acting, and just being the center of attention.
Hi, my name is John Tucker, and I am a rap artist, honey.
It's hard enough in this industry without a disability.
Yeah.
You gotta let all that go.
I got hopes, dreams, everything that you have, I have.
Woo! I'm Megan, and I'm 22. I'm in college right now, and I have my own business, Makeology. I don't want the whole society to hurt me, because I have this.
How do you handle dating? How do you handle kissing?
I love you. I love you way more, Brendan.
I do want to talk with you about the whole baby thing, okay? I would really, really like for you to reconsider that dream.
Oh my God, she needs to be independent, and I worry about what happens when I die. And just the thought of her being alone is really sad.
There is gonna be a time that your father and I won't be here.
If today was the day, he would live with me and he would take vacations with Christine.
One of the things about being a parent of a child with an intellectual disability is you just have different things to celebrate, different things that are rewarding, and they come along at different times. But the feelings are the same.
One day, people would look at him and admire him. And they wouldn't look at him as Down syndrome. And they wouldn't be staring at him for the wrong reason.
The doctor asked her if she wanted to have a abortion of me. And I mean, I could be out there dead. Your parents have given birth to you, they love you, they care for you. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm human. We have to like just be the person that we are, because that's what God meant us to be.
Megan has taught me what's important in life. I had no idea that I was capable of loving someone the way I love my daughter.
You guys didn't do this for me. You guys really touched me.
All right. What's one noticeable difference facially?
Youth-like face.
Youth-like face? Okay. Anybody else? There's one feature. Yes? Eyes. It's 100% the eyes. You can tell, if I was pregnant, the doctor would be able to tell in the womb if I had a Downs if the baby had Downs. So I would know before the baby was born, typically, not always, but typically. And then as soon as the baby comes out, when the baby comes out and is delivered, the eyes immediately, they look more sunk in, they have more of laps underneath, they're spread out further this way. There's just a distinguishing characteristic of those eyes that you can tell. Speech, could you tell speech? Thicker, it's called a thick tongue is what it is referred to. Their intellectual ability level ranges depending upon the severity of Downs. Downs has 3 compartments. You don't need to know any of them for our class. If any of you are interested in working with people with intellectual disabilities someday in your life, it actually, for people that work with intellectual disabilities, can be very rewarding and also very discouraging too, because you hit roadblocks along the way. But their ability level is generally around 6th grade if you are on the higher end of Downs. Down syndrome's babies today will live an average to about 60 years of age. This wasn't that long ago. In 1983, the average life expectancy of a Downs baby was 25 years of age. Why? Because if I knew I was having a Downs baby, what would they tell me? You guys got to think dark here.
Abortion.
Okay. Or What would be another choice or option if the kid's not perfect? What should I do with them? And still in the early 80s, they were telling people, put them in an institution. There's not much we can do. How sad is that? In your day and age, you've been raised with TV and movies where you see more and more Downs people actually becoming actors and actresses. I don't mean by the thousands, but have you guys ever seen that in movies or TV shows? Yeah, definitely. Where Hollywood has now allowed, and I will say the word allowed, to permit to have people with disabilities on the big screen so that we can see, you and I can say, this isn't something that is different and odd and we don't want to touch them, but more of, hey, we can incorporate them more into our daily lives. And they have feelings. Anything throw you off when you saw that? Like you were like, whoa. Anything stun you a little bit? I don't mean like shocked you to the core, but.
She wanted to have a baby.
Yes, yes. You know, that internal instinct is there. Women can have babies that have Downs. 30% chance that the baby will not survive. Men who have Downs men cannot reproduce with Downs. So biologically, I'm not sure why. You know what shook me, that I just had to chuckle, is when they were sitting in the bar having a beer. Like, honestly, any 24-year-old or 27-year-old would be doing, just shooting the shit with another guy and just being like, hey. And there they were. I mean, how normal is that for a lot of people? And that show, it's like I said, a documentary, but if you're bored on some snow day, you might want to find it. Let's move to moderate intellectual disabilities, guys. So I will read, because I know some of you cannot read it. I apologize. You can maintain a job. You can have skills up to around 2nd grade. Developmental delays. So like walking's going to take a little bit more, crawling, all those baby things that you learn, speech, that's going to be delayed. You may live independently, but many do live in a group home. So they actually have the ability to live kind of semi by themselves, but they have an overseer. Are you guys aware that there are group homes here in Dubuque, Iowa? And they look just like in a normal neighborhood, you know. Here's severe disabilities, intellectual disabilities, little communication. Very difficult to do what I'm doing with you right now. They'll point, they'll grunt. Even pointing might be difficult because you have to have eye-hand coordination. Close supervision. They must live amongst close supervised people. More of an institution setting, we're talking here. And then obvious abnormalities. Some parents will try to keep their children at home for a little bit during this, especially when they're younger, because let's be honest, it is easier to hold a baby than it is a 50-year-old man or woman and try to do these things with them. It becomes a little bit more difficult as they get older. Another test question that you guys are going to see is we talk about schools, the integration of intellectual disabilities in an everyday classroom. Granted, we don't have that in this classroom, but I bet you've been in classrooms or seen people in the hallway or at lunch, especially when we had a full school, where people with intellectual disabilities are integrated in our schools. Is it good? I guess it's up for an opinion, but the purpose of that is so that you and I see them as a person, a human being, and not something that should be tucked away. How about jobs? Who knows of places in town that hires people with intellectual disabilities? Is there any place?
Goodwill.
Goodwill does, yes. Culver's, I hear a lot of people saying that one. Any place else? Any of you work in places where, yeah? Happy Joe's. What is their job task?
They work in the kitchen.
Okay, okay. Hy-Vee, I shop at Hy-Vee and I see beggars and I can tell that they have an intellectual disability because of how they're speaking, and usually so friendly, super friendly. Talk, 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 talk. My ear off a little bit. So we are integrating this part of our intellect into society. It's important that we do not uphold that self-fulfilling prophecy. Think about that Born This Way trailer. If those people believed that they should be institutionalized, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing today. I hope you guys have a great day. Tomorrow, like I said, I'm going to have a discussion regarding the reading that you guys did. So, I think the bell's about to ring. Goodbye, everybody at home. We'll see you tomorrow.